Okay.
Okay, so here we are again.
Robin, do you have headphones?
Yep, I have headphones in.
They're in her hair.
Okay. So
Okay, good.
Matt, we're live. Okay.
Yeah, we're live, Matt.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, we're live. Fantastic.
Okay. So that was my cousin Matt just beaming in last second. And, you know, we're trying to start on time. So we're at 7:01. We're a minute late. But, guys, I know that there were 7 people waiting, and I really appreciate you guys being on here for this podcast. I want to give a shout out to the Health Span and Longevity Discord community for them being so supportive, and also to our lovely guest here, Robin. She has been such a great supporter of ours, and she's so smart. You know.
How do we pronounce your last name, Robin?
Farmanfarmaian.
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 Got it.
Farmanfarmaian. That's Marvin. We said for Marvin to beam in here. He was usually behind the scenes. He's back at the studio. I'm down in Georgia, and my cousin, I think, is either in Baltimore, Virginia. I don't even know where he lives. I know that there's a marathon there next month that I got to be prepared for. But anyway, Matt, you want to introduce our guest and what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Oh, sure. I'm really happy that Robin's on here. This is Robin Farmanfarmaian, and probably a lot of people that are watching this will know her. She is just an amazing speaker, and talks about the patient as CEO and how important it is to take control of your own life. She's been a part of starting many companies, many startup companies, and successful and very successful. Well educated. And recently, Robin was at RadFest, I believe. So, Robin, why don't you tell us a little bit about how RadFest was, maybe some of the talks that you saw, and just give us a rundown of what you've been doing lately.
Sure. So thanks so much for the introduction. So yeah, I was at RadFest, which is Radical Life Extension Conference. The vast majority of the talks were actually deep scientific talks, talking about what people are doing on curing cancer in the lab, what they're doing on telomeres, you know, especially was, of course, a main overall theme of the conference, as it is in any longevity conference. We also saw a lot of people working on the scientific side of actually extending the cell life, right? But then there was also lifestyle stuff. So there were a significant number of people who were talking about, you know, there's the preventive medicine aspect that all of us should be taking in general, but that type of behavior and mindset is actually a longevity tool as well. They even had Suzanne Summers come in. So if you remember her from Three's Company back in the 1970s, so she's been a big advocate of using different type of hormone therapy, because hormone replacement therapy for women in menopause was causing cancer. And there was a certain type of drug that was still on the market that was derived from horses, and it hadn't had any innovation in it for, you know, decades. And so she's a big proponent of that and of longevity overall. And she is 70 years old, and she looked on stage about 40. So yeah, so that was the conference.
That is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, awesome. And I'm sure you've been a part of several conferences. It seems like your schedule's pretty booked. Where else have you been speaking?
Oh, so I've had over 60 speaking engagements in less than 2 years. I've got some really cool ones coming up. I'm doing masterminds in Vienna, Austria. I'm the opening keynote for New Zealand Bio. So it's their version of the big biotech conference, and I'll have a bunch of interviews over there. I'm keynoting TEDx Academy. So it's my first TEDx because I'm a professional speaker. I do much bigger stages typically than a TEDx, but this is 1,500 person TEDx. So, and a big 10,000 person online audience. So it's one of the really big ones. I'm so excited about that. And I'm keynoting a conference in Japan, Tokyo. So Forbes just did a big profile on the patient as CEO and really what that means, and published it in Forbes Japan. It was a 6-page spread, and now I'm doing my first keynote in December.
Wow, that is absolutely exciting. Absolutely. Do you find that the crowds are just growing at this, the excitement's growing, or I mean, is it taking off?
It's spreading because it's such a clear message. Patient as CEO, of course we need to take control of our own healthcare. Of course we need to be empowered patients. And now we're in a time of the world where we have technological advancements that allow that to happen in an easy and meaningful way, which is the first time in history that we've been able to access medicine on the level that we do as patients, right? And so that idea is really grabbing hold, talking to a lot of people internally, you know. So people tell me when they meet me that they kind of channel me sometimes in doctors' offices, because they're like, wait a second, I should be in control. I should be the decision maker. I'm going to pull a Robin right now, and I'm going to take control of my own healthcare. And I'm seeing this spread through hospitals, like especially in Europe. I've talked to a bunch of European hospitals, and one of them actually wanted to print up T-shirts that said "the patient as CEO" for the staff to wear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So, you know, I was looking around, and I realized I think your main thing is preserving tissues and organs, right?
So when I work on companies poised to impact 100 million patients or more. So I'm working in sleep apnea, curing cancer, VR for stroke and brain injury rehabilitation. And my nonprofit is catalyzing breakthroughs in tissue engineering and cryopreservation to eradicate the world's transplant shortage.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really kind of what I wanted to hear. I mean, I love hearing all the talking, and it's amazing how many people that you're impacting. And TEDx, I'm sure, is going to be huge. But I did want to hear a little bit about the Organ Preservation Alliance that you're a part of, and how that's going to change the landscape for people. And I mean, you're talking about what, hundreds of thousands of people a year that are waiting for an organ, and the current methodology. I watched something recently about the past and current ways that they're preserving organs, and
Yep.
the different machinery that they use to just kind of pump the kidneys. And there was some fantastic information there about a kidney, the first kidney that was on a pump machine. It made it all the way over to Europe and made the first transplant, and how exciting that was for people. So now what you're talking about is, and getting involved in, is a whole new frontier towards organ preservation. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. So yeah, so we put together this nonprofit, and we aggregated the scientists and all of the science, created a roadmap through a series of conferences and workshops, including ones at the Department of Defense, DARPA, and the White House OSTP. And we created essentially a roadmap to success, and took something called cryopreservation from a 35-year out problem. Most likely it was going to take that long to solve, to potentially an 8-year problem, right? And having that solved. We did it by breaking it down into a 6 to 9 stage engineering process. And so then we worked with the DoD and got grants written around those various stages that we had mapped out with our scientific community, what our scientists were working on. And so there were 15 million, I think, and then an additional a few million went out of the DoD to really support those scientists that we had identified and worked with up until that point. Now, this is a big deal because the #1 killer in the United States is organ failure, right? Because think about it, heart disease is technically the #1. That is your organ failure. So if you can replace it with one that works, right, then not only can we prevent you from dying, but we can extend your life. In fact, up to 35% of all US deaths could be significantly delayed or prevented with a transplant. Now, right now, the waiting list for things like a heart, to give you a little background, about 80% of donor hearts go unused, right? Because a donor heart only lasts about 4 hours outside of the body if it's not on some type of life support. And that is not enough time to get a recipient patient into the hospital and prepped if they are not in the immediate area, right? That is not a lot of leeway time. And so the matching sucks because you don't have it, you're geographically constrained, right? Because you don't have a way to preserve that organ. So with something like cryopreservation, we can put the organs on essentially ice, right? This is a way of preserving it, essentially freezing, and be able to get it from Florida to California to the perfect match, so that therefore we worry about less rejection, we worry about less hearts going unused, and we save more lives, right? So that's why it's such a big deal.
Yeah, and theoretically, I guess you could have any organ donor, like I'm an organ donor, and anybody getting your license that happens to watch this, make sure that you check that, just in case. But if you're an organ donor, then theoretically they could just kind of harvest your organs and use this cryopreservation, which you said it was like freezing, right? It's a little bit like there's a chemical cocktail that they can pump into your organs that actually just suspends your organs in time, so that they can once they're cleared out later and pumped with blood, then they wake up again. So it's I mean, they already do it with embryonic stages and like, you know, with in vitro fertilization, blastocysts, they can cryopreserve and then thaw them, and they're still alive, and it's amazing. Yep. So why not be able to do this with larger organs, which is wonderful. That's fantastic.
Exactly. So, yeah, super excited about that. And that's just a nonprofit. So, I mean, it goes back to the point, you don't actually need to be a scientist to make a massive impact in regenerative medicine. You can work with scientists and help them get the funding, help them create the roadmap to success, to getting the science not only into the lab, but collaborate with the right people out of the lab and in development, so that it actually impacts people, right? Yeah. So you can be in management, you can be in finance, you can be in a lot of other disciplines and still make an impact in Regen Med.
Wow, and you're like the CEO for the world now is what's happening. You know, this is great.
Yeah, and with cryopreservation, now how is that, like once it's cryopreserved, how long does that extend it? Like
that would be almost indefinite, right? I mean, it's in our purposes for the discussion, it takes it from hours to days, weeks, months, or potentially years, right? And once we've perfected it. And the reason the DoD is so interested is they want an organ bank, right? Because so many soldiers lose a limb, need skin transplants, muscle transplants, they lose body parts, right? And so they don't want just the vascularized organs, you know, the liver, the kidney, the heart, the lung. They want other parts of the body, and they want a huge organ bank so that when their soldiers get injured, they can help and make them whole again, right? And so that's why the DoD is so interested in this technology.
And there's enough of a demand, I take it, that like these organs won't have to be waiting for years, right? Like there's...
No, they won't. Exactly. The demand is huge because the wait list for an actual transplant in this country are not even the 1% of patients who would actually benefit from a transplant. It's just these patients who would benefit from a transplant are not sick enough, and there are other resources available to them, so they don't actually qualify even for these wait lists. But yes, there's lots of people in this country and the world that would benefit from a transplant that don't even have that as an option right now.
Well, I think that I was going to say, I think there's a lot of people listening right now that maybe would like to participate. So I don't know, Marvin, could you pull up the Organ Preservation Alliance website? Maybe Robin, you could walk us through where people can connect.
Oh, I haven't looked at it in about a month or two. I'm thinking it's the same one, but there should just be a contact us button.
Yeah, you'll see it in a second. We're going to share the screen and we'll be able to look at it. We'll see if it's that way people can see it that are watching this.
And in the meantime, so how long, so say there's an accident and someone dies, how long do they have to get cryopreserved?
You mean the individual vascularized organs harvested and put on ice for a recipient patient?
Yeah, like so how long does that process take? So someone is pronounced dead. Does it now? And is that going to have to be something that is going to be rolled out through, you know, the EMT, or it's an ambulance comes and it's like, okay, dead on arrival. Okay, and is that all of a sudden?
Yeah, that's what I was curious about, because you mentioned the alternative being the life support system, but I assume, you know, those are too few and far between, or maybe too expensive that everyone doesn't have it on hand. So is it going to be easier for this cryopreservation to just be rolled out to everyone, or?
Absolutely. So you just harvest the organs the way you would normally think about harvesting them. So if somebody dies in the hospital, and you've got a recipient in the immediate area, what you're going to do is you're going to harvest the organs right then and there and put them into the new recipient, right? But instead of just putting them into a new patient, just put them into the cryopreservation the state, right? And so I'm not sure how that would happen in practice because we are still 8 years out from the science being perfected. And then of course it needs FDA approval and all of that kind of stuff. And people have to take it to market. The way I'm envisioning it is that there will be probably drones mixed into that. So I can talk a little bit about that.
That's awesome.
But what's probably going to happen is there are going to be some companies, essentially to the carrier companies. And those already exist in the world of transplants. They've got people who coordinate everything to do with the transplant itself. And so other companies like that who are going to deliver the cryopreservation tools or whatever they're going to need, or they're going to come and take the organ immediately to a cryopreservation facility. So it's just going to be a middleman, and they're going to be able to get it on ice ASAP if there is not a perfect match recipient patient in the immediate area.
Right. That seems like something that would be, you know, someone is pronounced dead, and then it just frees the whole body. Boom! You know, the guy's like, he's frozen. Okay, guys, we're good. Let's take our time. No one rush. You know, because one of the things that I think about this, and I think a lot of people that are talking about, you know, saying, hey, I want to donate my parts and stuff. There's always these stories where you hear like, okay, you know, they're bleeding, you know, there's an issue, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? It's not that urgent because we'll just use that body parts to save somebody else, and we'll lose this life, but maybe we'll save somebody with a heart, maybe we save somebody with a kidney, you know. So I think a lot of what ekes people out is, hey, are my body part, is that gonna make them, like the doctors or the emergency medics, are they gonna, they see my donor card and then they're like, you know, nah, might as well let them die. You know?
I highly doubt it. These people have dedicated their lives to saving people's lives.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. That's one of the things that I know. Like, this is like 25 years ago. You know, you're talking about Walt Disney, or you're talking about when Ted Williams. You know, so the conversations come up in the past. You know, so I'm just saying.
But you're talking about essentially there's the cryonics, and then there is a potential black market. Like these people would have to massively profit, and when you talk profit, it's going to be green, right? It's going to mean money. So you're talking about illegal activities and crazy, cryonics.
Yeah.
Which we're really far from cryonics. Like we're very far from that. We're very far. Even when we can do a vascularized organ, doing a brain in any meaningful way is very far out.
But we're on the path, and people have been talking about it. And one step that is close to the full organ transplant, it may be able to bridge patients that need a transplant, is the work that's being done in tissue engineering. I saw that a little bit on the website, and you know that we have a real interest in tissue engineering and bioprinting as we kind of connect with companies like you know, that are doing that. So I'm wondering if you can speak to tissue engineering a little bit as kind of as a halfway point there or something.
Absolutely. So it's actually what our main goal is. So the cryopreservation is the stopgap measure to be able to take organs that were grown in another human being and transplant them. But there is a huge number of problems with that, including rejection is the biggest one, which will kill you, right? So the main goal is to actually be able to tissue engineer your own organs on demand when you need it. Not only if you need a transplant the way you would normally do, you know, if you had heart failure and you need a heart transplant, but in addition, if you got sick and instead of having minor surgery or going on a medication for the rest of your life, imagine just switching out your organ with one grown from your own stem cells, so there was zero chance of rejecting it, right? And so that's the ultimate goal. That will extend life significantly, right? That will start getting us off a lot of these drugs or having long-term problems, because essentially you just got yourself a new body part, right? I can talk a little bit about where I think the status of the industry is, if you'd like.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of people asking, do lung transplants exist currently?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, a friend of mine had a double lung transplant twice, and she's an opera singer. Brilliant woman. Her name is Charity, and she just has a book on it where she actually had to retrain 2 different sets of lungs that didn't come from her body. And being an opera singer, there was actually a distinct difference.
Wow, does she
have a raspy voice?
I would love to hear her story. What's her name? Maybe we could pull up her
Charity Tillman Dick.
Charity,
as in like the nonprofit, the word the nonprofit, you know, Charity Tillman Dick.
I found it. Yep.
You found her? She's amazing.
Hold on, I want to see this lady. Imagine what she went through. You know what I mean?
Drop dead gorgeous, a wonderful, beautiful person on the inside, extremely driven, and has gone through more than any of us will ever have in our lifetimes.
I'll pull up a picture, but I can probably play it later.
Did you have to train her lungs when she went through that, like to get back?
Oh, there she is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, that was after, I think, her first, and she's had cancer, by the way, as well. So she's had cancer on her face and other huge things that she's had to deal with in addition to double lung transplant. That was after, I think, her first. Because, by the way, I don't know if huge things that she's had to deal with in addition to double lung transplant. That was after, I think, her first.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. Let's see.
That you want to tell them to be so that they can be a liver cell, a kidney cell, or a skin cell. So the work that's being done in the area of stem cell work absolutely feeds into the work that's being done at the Organ Preservation Alliance, right? So there's this synergy that's going on right now inside of regenerative medicine where things are happening all over the place that feed into each other and create a better future for everybody. So
exactly. And it's going to take a while to actually tissue engineer an organ. It's not like you're going to need one and you can get it overnight when we actually perfect this technology. So cryopreservation is going to be a way to be able to preserve even these kind of organs on demand.
And then in addition, in the meantime, as a step towards it, what we have are there's a company called Organovo that I know they've said that they're going to they've printed a liver patch and they put it on a mouse that had a metabolic disorder, and it showed that the patch actually worked, which is great. So they're going to be looking to help people with metabolic disorders of the liver as a pediatric indication. They're going to submit like early next year. And I know there's companies like one in Spain that's trying to do something with tissue engineering. And I know there's companies that make skin as well. So there's a lot of people that are using a bioprinter to print tissue, and the tissue is living. Isn't that what you heard?
You can even get your own bioprinter. It's called BioBots. So BioBots is on the market that 3D prints tissue engineering.
Wow, that's incredible.
You know, it's so cool.
Well, you know, you talk about some therapies that I know it's difficult for the patient as CEO, like to get. So like right now, Pat and I in 45 days are going to run the Baltimore Marathon. And I know that Pat's going to be hurting, and he's his knees, like let's say that he has some cartilage damage in his knees. I mean, right now, or even for me or anybody with a shoulder, I was kind of poking fun at Pat, but people that have injuries that could get stem cells injected into the cartilage area, if you still have cartilage in your knees or in your shoulders or hips, and have those stem cells, your own stem cells, drawn from your fat cells or your skin cells and kind of multiplied and then put back. That therapy is right now illegal for people, but I can go buy a pack of cigarettes down at this store.
Yes, well, that's politics. That's not science, that's politics.
Well, Robin, we expect you to fix that. Okay, can you handle that?
Okay, I'll do that on the side of impacting 100 million patients.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Now, I know that in Texas, they're the first ones that are moving to try to help people. I don't know, Marvin, do you want to pull it up? Texas allows stem cell treatment, but it's only under like dire circumstances. But I really love that, Robin. I think it's amazing that people that are in a position of being just at the last, you've been there, and you've like, I need to take control. And if they've got an opportunity to use stem cells for a disease state that is just robbing their life, and they have no other way out, I say go for it. You know, like that's a great opportunity.
If you understand the risks, if you truly understand the risks that you're undertaking and you understand the rewards, it's your decision if you're an adult.
Yeah, I know. And I believe that more states should adopt this, because there's a lot of talk right now about the FDA saying in the CARES Act that recently came out that said that they're going to be kind of really ramping up or allowing a nice pathway for cell-based therapy and tissue-based therapy. But but they also just recently, like 3 days ago, put out a paper saying they're really worried about people taking advantage of people with stem cells and saying they're going to be beautiful forever, they're going to live forever. But they're really stepping away from all the science. It's helped people with macular degeneration. It's helped people that have had strokes. It's helped so many people that they should really encourage. Yeah.
Back to the politics, and that was recently. I think a couple people got, they went to a sham artist and they got some bad. I don't know. Do you know about the whole thing, Robin? Recently, there was some issues, and somebody did, I don't know, passed on some stem cells. The stuff didn't go over that well, or something like that, or maybe there was infections or something like that. So there was a little bit of bad publicity. But I think the good far outweighs the bad, right?
Yeah, we need more data, right? That's what the FDA is saying, that we just need more clinical trials that are set up right and more data to show the long-term effects of what this might have. So it is an industry that is, unfortunately, as you mentioned, ripe with some distrustful people, let's say. So I was just reading about, do you remember when the physician that did 17 trachea transplants using essentially a 3D printed trachea dipped in the patient's stem cells? Yes. He had the whole world fooled.
Yes, I remember.
He was at Karolinska Institute, right? And it turns out all of those patients died.
Ah, got it.
Right, and and in fact, the surgery made a lot of them worse off. So there are people that are able to calm the system, and he was doing it not for research purposes, right? This was their end of life. This is the last.
Yeah, they were dying. Yeah, they were dying. So they were trying. Right?
But it turns out it didn't actually work. And nobody knew that except for that doctor, because it's such a very specific specialty that he could say anything. And the people at the hospital with his credentials, of course, would say, of course, you're right. You're the leading expert in this.
Well, on the other hand, you've got Dr. Atala at Wake Forest, who
I love him.
Yeah, right. So he put the stem cell. He kind of blew the stem cells on a lattice that was the size. It was for a bladder for a little girl, and like saved her life, I think, with the bladder. So
yeah, bladders are not vascularized organs, so we're able to do that because it's essentially a container with a scaffolding. Yeah. Right, it's the hearts, the lungs, the kidneys. Those are the hard parts right now.
Yeah, well, those are the big problems that you're going after, basically. Right. So that's good. That's your pioneer.
Well, fantastic. It should be able to pass on good hard data. Now with the internet and people having conversations like this and conversations growing, and then all of a sudden you go, hey, look, Yes, I listened to one of Robin's talks, and you know what? Maybe I'll go to her and ask her a question, or maybe I'll get on some of these podcasts and learn, to take the self-responsibility on who do I go to, because ultimately it is buyer beware still. I mean, these guys are on their last thread, and they're like, help me, but the sad part is that someone's going, yeah, I'm going to help you, but I can't swim.
Right. Yeah.
Like, send me, go into a pool. I don't know, with a good lifeguard, or I don't know how to say that. But what I'm just so, I want to go back to the this cryo preservation thing, because I'm like, that is really something that is, it's here already, right?
We're 8 years out from that problem.
I know, but also, so here's how I like to think. So if you're like somebody, you have 4 hours now, right? I mean, when you go to try to cryopreserve something, right? Are we able to affect, like, where were we 5 years ago? Was it 2 hours?
No, it's not the length of time that we can cryopreserve something for.
No, not that. I'm saying someone dies. Right?
Oh, and the length of time has always been about the same, unless you're able. There's some innovation going on in the world of transplants where you can keep it on a pump and things like that for a little while.
Let's talk about the average. Right now it's around 4. Before it was around 4. So okay.
Yeah, I mean it's just biology.
Yeah. When is this cryo, like, when are we going to make it 6 hours or 10 hours? How long do you think before we can make it 10 hours, let's say?
Well, that's the thing. Once it's perfected, it's indefinite, right? So we're going to jump from 4 hours to 15 years.
Oh, so right now you can't. It's so FDA deal. You can't even.
No, it's just we can't do the science. Like, literally, the science is that hard. So think about cryopreservation on a very high level. You can break it down to 3 stages. We broke it down to a lot more engineering stages than that, but for our purposes of this discussion, you need to be able to freeze the vascular organ, right? And then you need to be able to keep it frozen for a period of time. And then you need to be able to defrost it and still have it work. And if you think about things like water and ice crystals, in cells that breaks through walls of cells, right? So when you defrost things, the cells are all completely damaged and it's unusable. So if you think about just regular freezing with water molecules, and remember how much water is in the human body, right? That would normally just destroy the organ. So at a high level, just freeze it, keep it frozen, and defrost it. But those 3 alone are extremely difficult, and we have not perfected it yet. We are working on perfecting it.
It's got to be so close, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, that's why we're about 8 years out.
And actually, I was wondering if you could let me know a little bit. I was having a little bit of back and forth by email today with a guy named Luis Alvarez. Now, who is that guy?
So he was working with the DoD when we were doing all the grants. So he's the lead grant writer, I believe, at the DoD for the different stages of cryopreservation. And he's a deep lab scientist himself, right? He recently left the DoD, and I believe he's working with a friend of mine on tissue engineering or cryopreservation. He's working in the transplant space.
He's in tissue engineering at United Therapeutics.
Yes, Martine Rothblatt. I didn't know if I was allowed to say that. So yeah, Martine Rothblatt's company. I love her. She's amazing.
Great.
She has United Therapeutics, and then another company called Lung Biotechnologies. And she is working on tissue engineering, fully vascularized organs in
that is great
ways. Yeah,
right on. Wow, what a bright future for my kids. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. Yeah. Well, awesome. That's great. Well, tell us a little bit. Yeah, we got to get some of these people that on here. What do you? Can you invite them on here or what?
Sure. Let me know. Yeah, I can definitely invite people on here.
Okay. Cool.
We can have there's some of the interesting deep lab scientists. One who froze a frog and then brought him back to life.
That's what I saw. Yeah. That's what I saw recently. That was like just recently, right?
No, his name is Ken Story. And he did that 4 years ago, something like that, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I could have sworn I read something like in the last couple of weeks about them freezing a frog or something. And then
it's probably the same story. It keeps coming up because it's amazing.
Right.
Wouldn't that be
Right.
great if it was the same frog that just keep freezing them, and then they're like, freeze them.
We can
So,
freeze you. Yeah.
hey, Marvin, can you ask her some of the questions that people are asking online? Because I'm looking at, there's a lot of questions. There's, a good amount of people on there. So I feel like.
Not that I am aware of. I know that there are a few labs, including BAM labs at Stanford, that are working on tissue engineering neurons. So like 3D printing brains, like, so that's pretty cool. I don't know of anyone directly working with brains, but I can get you an expert that will be able to tell you that.
Cool. Can get into it. I saw that Aubrey's over at AgeX now. Do you know those people at all?
What? No, I didn't know that. I just saw him. He was a main keynote at RadFest, so I got to have lunch with Aubrey.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's over at AgeX, which is, I'm not sure who the players are. I'm sure if you looked at it, you would know. But he's transitioning while still being a part of the SENS Research Foundation, which is all about longevity people. So that's another valuable website to go to. In addition, now it's more into a commercial aspect with AgeX, where he thinks he can get more investors. And I think the last time we had everybody together on here, he was talking about trying to figure out that bring in investors through different groups or funding groups or, investing groups. So I think he's trying to work on that while still maintaining a high level of scientific output and really delving into how we can solve the problem of aging. So that's pretty cool. Any other questions out there, Marvin?
Yes, so that is a main problem. So that's what I was talking about when you think about water molecules breaking through cell walls. That is the crystallization process, and that is one of the biggest barriers to entry that needs solving before cryopreservation is a realistic technology that we can put into use.
Wow. So also, I know that Ted Williams and I guess supposedly Walt Disney, I don't know if that's some nonsense that was made up, but they did. Supposedly Ted Williams was on ice, right?
I heard those rumors. It's not going to work. The cells have been destroyed. Like when you take someone off of ice that have been preserved in that way, there's just no way to not have that crystallization, which has then destroyed those very delicate cells, which is your entire body is made up of. I don't see that being any chance. So I never say never, but
I think what you're talking about though is that it's not, and that's kind of where the questions were going about water and crystallization. That's like, you can't do that. So what they're looking at now is more of like an antifreeze, if to call it, something simplistic, but it's a chemical bath, some sort of cocktail that would be injected into the bloodstream and maintain the integrity of the cell walls and all the organs. And that's really where the science is now. They're trying to find the proper balance of chemical cocktail that will last and do the job. Is that right?
There's one technology that turns it into like a glass-like structure so that it's almost shelf-stable. So that's really cool too. It's a type of form of cryopreservation. I forget what it's called off the top of my head. But yeah, there are some companies working on that.
You know what I thought was pretty cool? And this is kind of like a little side note, but so I put my laundry out and one of them was supposed to be dry cleaned, right? So I came back and I'm like, oh man, this is like an expensive shirt. And now it's a little bit smaller than I would want, right? So Marvin comes to me, who's sitting over there on the right. He says, it's okay. They have a formula that brings cotton back to its original state. So you can take something that was shrunk and wash it in this de-shrinker, and now all of a sudden you have a big shirt again. So if that's possible, anything's possible.
I think that we should try that with a human being, right? Just throw them into a bathtub full of that, see what happens. Maybe I'll grow.
Yeah.
You don't need, you're fine the way you are. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Fantastic.
So, man, there's just this. It's amazing every time that you speak to someone about this, like regenerative medicine, tissue engineering, all these different things. It's just like you come alive because it's so exciting, and we're on the outside, and you're on the inside, right? Yeah. And my cousin's over there dying to get into the inside. Like he's just like, where am I going to go? Like we talked about today. He's like, oh my God, I just, you know, these people were looking at, you know, and I was thinking, hey, yeah, I was in pharmaceuticals and I would like to get back into it, whatever. But, you know, like even listening to him speak, he's becoming so knowledgeable about it because he really is in love with the whole, the whole, what do you call it?
Industry.
Kid and caboodle. Yeah, exactly.
You should ask Lewis if they're hiring at United. It's a big company.
Yeah. I'll take a look. I mean, I'm right outside of DC, so it's definitely.
He wants to work for the big. He wants to work for the big O, Oregon Ovo. You know, he has a license plate. What does your license plate say, Matt?
It says Go Onvo. And that's the symbol.
Talk about commitment.
Yeah, that was about 2 years ago when I first started hearing about regenerative medicine. And then we've just had an amazing journey where we've run into wonderful, beautiful people like Robin, like Aubrey, like David Goebel. He's another one that's, carrying the flag with the Methuselah Foundation. And so there are many different people that are out here, and it is just so exciting. Like all the people at Lifespan. Marvin, do you have any more questions from the Lifespan people?
Not right this second, but I probably heard you and are about to type some out. So
yeah, type something up.
Well, just having a conversation. All of a sudden, more people come in. They start, discussing it. Oh wow, what's that? Oh, what frog got frozen, and now all of a sudden, he's racing, hopping around like a madman. I think it is just absolutely amazing, and I can't even wait. Like, I can't even believe that we've had this many podcasts. And I'm like waiting to dive in. I see my cousin getting, smarter, not quite as smart. I see him getting really, really he's really getting it. And I'm dying to jump in. Like I was looking over your website there with the cryopreservation stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, oh man, I got to get deeper into this. And it's just wonderful to be able.
And we've had an amazing time. We've talked with, have you heard of this guy, Bas Rutten? He's a MMA fighter, a world champion. Yeah, you've got to, I'll send you the conversation we had, but he had damaged his neck and something, and he had volumetric muscle loss in his arm. So the patient as CEO decided to he met some people that had like stem cell therapy in Panama. So he went to Panama and they pulled some cells out, and then he left for a while, and they kind of multiplied the cells. And then he came back and he had some of his own stem cells injected into his neck, into his arm, and transfusion into his blood. And he said he felt like he had energy coming out of his fingertips, like he was on. Yeah. From a stem cell transfusion.
You will love him, and he will love you.
Yeah. You'd recognize him. Harry, hold on a second. Just Marvin, pull up Bas Rutten, and then you'll see, because this guy is great. He's a great guy. He's in California. He's in New York now. He's doing a show. But we'll show you Bas Rutten. You might recognize him, actually, just because he's kind of well-known guy.
Oh, and just a quick correction, Matt, it is HealthSpan, not Lifespan. That is one.
Oh, I'm sorry, HealthSpan people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This guy. Oh.
You know that guy? You know that guy? You've seen him around a little bit? I don't know. But he is
maybe an MMA photo of him.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But anyways, then there was another story. We talked with this woman that was at the University of Cincinnati in the PhD program. She was part of a group. This is Sangs. She was part of a group in India that there was this poor girl. There's this great story too. We showed it. Where this little girl had it's the red blood cell version of leukemia called thalassemia, thalassemia, I think it was called. And she was going to die. And what they did was use the placental blood stem cells from the parents were devastated, but they didn't think they could have another child. So they got pregnant with one child and it had thalassemia, so they had to terminate the pregnancy. Then on the last ditch effort, the doctors urged her to try to have another child because they used the placental blood and the cord blood as stem cells because it was a match, and they had to give the little girl chemotherapy and then do like a totally kill all her, you know, white blood cells or whatever, and came back with a infusion of stem cells and saved her life. She was part of the team. The little girl was like, I want to be a teacher when I grow up. She was speaking in, you know, native tongue, but you couldn't, they had a translator, and it was just so cute.
Yeah,
so there's
touching story.
Yeah.
Great.
So there's stories out there where people are really benefiting from it. And the more we can get stories like this of people, and actually we had somebody that was just watching on like Facebook Live or something like that said, it was one of Pat's contacts that said that she had stem cell treatment on her shoulder and it worked, you know.
Wow.
So little things that are happening. What we're talking about for Organ Preservation Alliance is like really saving somebody's life in the moment that they need like a transplant. Then there's little therapies, I think, that can help people along the way with stem cells, and the future is bright for making tissues out of your own genetic material, so there's no chance of it rejecting, and all the medicines that you have to take to try to, you know, deal with that. So. Well,
and there's lots going on in the world of stem cells in the big pharmas, like Celgene Therapeutics. First of all, last time I talked to them, they had a cure for Crohn's disease in clinical trials. They were in late stage clinical trials for burns. So like if you have severe, you know, burns all over your body, you're going to die, right? And the existing treatments for burns are okay. This regenerated the skin. Like, I think that you could probably even Google a presentation by Bob Hariri on this. He's a physician, scientist, and see how much of a massive difference even a few days of stem cell treatment on a severe burn makes the healing process. It's extreme. It is so vastly accelerated and so superior to anything else that we do for burn care at the moment. And so there's some of the big pharmas, and Celgene is a huge big pharma, right? Biotech company.
Yeah, absolutely.
We gotta get those stories out. We should try to look up the opera singer. I think that's just amazing.
Yes.
We don't need it. No, we don't need the. I mean, the opera singer is great, but we've got Robin right here. Robin had seven organs taken out.
No, 3 organs taken out, but 6 major surgeries.
Oh gosh, that's good. 3.
So 3 is enough. Yeah. Like
sorry, I didn't want to like take every organ out of you, but 3 whole organs. That's crazy.
Yep. Including my entire large intestine. So you can live without a large intestine. They rebuilt my small intestine to function as if I had one, but it's still, you don't forget for even 1 second of any day that you don't have a large intestine. So pretty painful.
I had 7 feet of my intestine removed and part of my bowel.
Wow. So a little bit of the large intestine and 7 feet of the small intestine?
When I was 1 year old.
Who did the surgery?
I always like to say, I gave my boy props. C. Everett Koop.
Yeah.
Nice. So for everyone who's listening, I think the small intestine is about 21 feet long. So you lost about 1/3 of it. And the colon is about 3 feet long. And that's what I had taken out.
I save a lot of time in the bathroom, in and out, done.
Very nice. I can't believe, though, the amount of, it was methadone that they were going to put you on.
Yeah, no, I was on 80 milligrams a day of methadone because I had my colon taken out, and they thought I was cured because they thought I had ulcerative colitis. So they took me off all medications. I was almost out of Sonian every time I tried to come off prednisone. So they just treated me with methadone for pain and didn't look for anything else of why I was in such significant stomach and GI pain. Until finally, that's when I fired my doctors, because I was like, this isn't my life. Like, I'm not going to be on essentially heroin for the rest of my life, right? I got diagnosed correctly and put on a biologic medication, which put me into remission.
And how many years ago are we talking about from that moment?
From the time I fired my doctors,
Mm-hmm.
19 years.
19 years, and you must pinch yourself when you wake up and say, what a life I have now.
I
mean,
cannot
unbelievable.
believe. Yeah, I'm 10x further. So I mapped it out. Like I literally, about 5 years ago, sat down and I said, here's my goal, impact 100 million patients. And then I mapped it out on how I could actually do that. And part of being able to do that impact was to turn myself into a professional speaker and author, because it helps me get into the doors that I need to open in order to propel these ideas and these companies forward. Because I do high-level business development and fundraising. And it worked 10x better than I thought it was going to.
Wow.
Forbes Japan just did a big 6-page feature article on me. I was the main feature in this medical innovation thing. 80,000 copies distributed.
That's so awesome, Robin. We're so happy that you're doing so well, you know?
Right here.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I know, I'm so excited.
I'm not
So
sure.
are you a big believer in visualization of your future, you know? Or,
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well,
I just did.
Yeah, because if you don't know what you want to do, you don't have goals, and you don't really map it out, you just kind of go through life willy-nilly, right? You're not going to you could fall into something pretty amazing, right? That way. But if you want to hedge your bets, build your career like you would a business.
Okay.
And take in all of those extraneous things. So I look at Robin Inc., both everything as a division. So my book is a division. Some of my divisions actually bring in money, books, speaking engagements, that kind of thing. Some of my divisions pour out money. I'm an angel investor. I just made an investment in a vaccine, right? And before that, I did one in a cancer company. So that is an outgoing department, but they all need to work together. And that includes my personal life. So I outsource anything that's not worth my time. So looking at a business, if you were a CEO of a business, you wouldn't do the executive assistant tasks, right? You wouldn't do your own errands and things like that. You outsource it. So look at your personal life that same way. I never go to grocery stores. It's not worth my time. I use I've got about 16 delivery services here in the Bay Area, but throughout the country, you can use Amazon Prime. You can use lots of different ways to hack it together and literally outsource 100% of those tasks you would normally in a business.
See that, Marvin? You know what she's talking about?
I
That's
hear.
not supposed to be like cleaning up all the stuff around the thing and throwing away.
Hack your life. Yeah.
I got people working for me, and they're like, the cups are over here, and I'm like, can we just put the cups in the garbage? It's not... right. It makes up for it in other places. So I was gonna, until Matt kind of threw me off there.
Did I give you a little? I gave you a little bit of a little nudge, and now you're all. Yeah.
What I was gonna say. This is what I was gonna say. So I think what's so important in hearing your story, and even my story when I was a kid, that people need to be empowered by information, by knowledge, and by listening to people like yourself and being, personally responsible for who they are, what they're going through, and all that kind of stuff. Because I know when I was a kid, and I was a year old, this is about when, and I have theories about why it happened. They'll say, oh, it was a birth defect, but back then it was preservatives and, potentially the vaccine process, whatever it was. It was called interception of the bowel, right, and intestines and whatever. So where your intestines grow inside the other one, tangle up or whatever. I don't really know too much about what it looks like, but basically the doctor said to my parents, they brought me in and I was crying, I was going nuts, and they brought me in and they said, he's just a spoiled baby,
But your mom.
Yeah, so then they brought me in again, and he's just a spoiled baby. So we had moved to a house in the suburbs, and at the bottom of the block was a childhood friend of my parents who was a doctor, Dr. Al Palmieri. And they brought me down there, and he said, you got to bring him to the hospital right now, And then they didn't even know they didn't even know what to do. Basically, they were like, hey, this kid's going to die. I mean, they told my parents that I was done. So they went in there, that surgeon went in and just cut off all the infected area and then sewed me back up. And they basically said, you know, he's probably not going to make it. And then when that happened, then I went to see Everett Koop at the at Philadelphia Children's Hospital after that to go back in to make sure that everything was okay. So
great story. You know, you have a better story though, Pat. You have a better story. What? Go ahead. Did I cut you off?
Yeah, because I want to continue with this thing. So basically, my parents were almost defrauded out of their kid's life because they were listening to this doctor. Oh yeah, he's smarter. He's much more. He's a doctor, so it's like they would want to go. Oh, whatever you say. But thank God they had somebody else to compare it to, and the other doctor said, no, he's not spoiled. Get him to the hospital, and then he saved my life. So, in your case, you got to the point where you said, enough is enough. I'm firing you, and I'm taking it over on my own.
Well, taking over the decision making and looking at myself as CEO. So this is a very important concept in the fact that I'm not doing the work. I'm not doing the work of a physician. I'm not replacing them with myself. I'm replacing the idea that we used to have the primary care doc was supposed to be the center of the healthcare system, and they were supposed to be kind of your babysitter or your big brother or your parent. And of course, that has not worked out well. That doesn't work. So I'm telling people to be the CEO and hire the best doctors. And just like you would with a business, you're going to get just one opinion, right, on an organ being taken out. You wouldn't get one opinion on your roof being replaced. You'd get 3 quotes. So why would you look at healthcare any differently than the way you operate the rest of your life?
Sure. I mean, there was one doctor that said no. Right, like that he's a spoiled, and then there's 2 other doctors that were like, "Hey, look, we need to do an emergency surgery." They saved one doctor or a couple doctors saved my life, where one didn't. If you could go down that right road right off the bat, maybe things would be a little bit differently. But people start differently.
All right, let me go. You've been hogging the scene.
Go.
So Pat is an amazing character, right? So he once stowed away on an airplane to go see the 86 Olympics or something like that. Yeah. He also walked across the stage his senior year to get his diploma on his hands, to get his diploma, and at one point jumped off a bus to dunk a basketball. And he also played soccer at a very, very high level in South Carolina. So
I'm trying to figure out. Go ahead.
But the point is that I think it was potentially the fall from jumping off the bus caused a tick that my cousin had, and You got the timeline mixed up. But I did dunk a basket. I was dunking a basketball, and my feet went up in the air, and the actual rim came off the backboard, and I landed on my head and split my head open. But my mother said, "What happened to you?" And I said, "I just tripped. I was running, and I tripped off the curb." So she thought, "How bad can you get hurt tripping off a curb?" Well, the point of the story is that
was I think that was
all right. Well, at some point you develop this twitch, and I mean, he had it, and he had it bad. And his mom, which was my aunt, she took him to the best neurosurgeon in Connecticut, right? And she brought him in the Connecticut. This guy was accredited and big time, knew what he was talking about. And he said to Patrick and to my aunt, he needs brain surgery to fix that. It's only going to be brain surgery. That's what you need. And Pat said, allegedly, you can correct me, no, I don't need brain surgery. I'm going to beat this and I'm going to have your job, right? Something like that, next year, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, you started driving with the opposite foot. You started timing the amount of times between your twitches, and you concentrated so hard and you trained your brain to stop that twitch. You knew something in you knew that you had enough power to alter your own body in a way, and the neurological kind of twitch that you ended up curing it. Yeah. And I think that's the same sort of spirit that people need to have, the trust in themselves that they can they can make it happen. Once you have that thought in your head, like, I can do this, that's when change is really possible, you know? And I think you both have it, so it's good.
You have to be able to direct that, because I went to like 4 doctors, and then it was finally in Pittsburgh, and they did the whole CAT scan thing, and you know, you just have that feeling, and you just
like, I can do this.
Going there for my mother, because I didn't think it was really that. I mean, it was pretty bad, but you just say, you know, like you realize that if you really want to do it and you really want to get healed or you want to accomplish something, it's really discipline as well as, you know, effort. You know, you come without effort. So I did have to come up with my own training things. And Bas Rutten was the same kind of, he said that he had done, and he had asthma, and he had figured out, I guess he has a contraption, but to train his lungs to overcome, you know, rather than going to the spray. So, you know, I do think, like what you're saying, you know, you empower yourself, you become your own boss, you become your own CEO, and you make the decisions to best, make your life efficient and be healthy as possible.
Now, that being said,
Marvin, hold on. I tell Marvin, he's shaking his leg all the time. I mean, like constantly. I go, Marvin, stop shaking your leg. He's like, I can't help it. I have to. I'm like, yes, you can help it.
I know I can help it. It's just I prefer.
Why are you throwing?
I don't think it bothers anyone.
You know, you can make good decisions like that, where you know,
crazy.
you can stop something. But you can also make bad decisions. Like, you know, in 45 days, we've got this marathon, and I don't think Pat's run more than 10 miles in preparation for it. So, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so let me tell you about a company called IV Doc.
Yes.
So after the race, because if you're not trained well, you're going to be severely dehydrated. IV Doc, it's IV, on demand, consumer facing. You can order B12, all those vitamins, that kind of thing, you know, and the nurse will come and do it in your arm. And you get rehydrated after something like a marathon.
He might need it. How do you stay in shape, Robin?
I have worked out almost every single day of my life since I was 6 years old. I work out 7 days a week, 1 hour a day. I do not take days off. And I have systems and an organization in place. So when I travel, I work out an hour a day, even when I'm traveling. But in my own apartment, I have a full workout room. I have 3 giant pieces of equipment, workout equipment, a Stairmaster, an elliptical, and a ROM 4-minute machine.
Wow, that is so cool. So do you think that cardiovascular work is what keeps you kind of slim?
Yes. So I'm 88 pounds. I have never been even an ounce overweight my entire life. I can do a bathing suit shoot with a 21-year-old and totally kill it.
Wow.
But I haven't had even a small amount of cellulite in my entire life. And it's literally just from working out every day. Because I eat lots of ice cream, I eat lots of sugar, I eat lots of pizza, and yet I've still never been even an ounce overweight in my life. So
I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I call it vitamin I. It's so much. Yeah.
I'll do that from now on.
You gotta do it. Yeah. So give me some of that. Yeah.
So hey, I wonder. So a couple people. Well, ES says Robin's enthusiasm is so awesome.
Yay!
Yeah. He was saying you were boring. That's what he was saying.
Yeah. It's like, okay. Another person says, what do you think about partial, I can't pronounce the name. I think it's written in like, I'm not sure what language that is, but what do you think about partial cell reprogramming? Could it help extend longevity?
I don't know how far along that science is. It sounds really interesting, so I will be looking it up, but I have no idea how far along that science is. Matt, do you?
No, I haven't heard that. Say it again. What is it? Cell reprogramming?
Partial cell reprogramming.
I mean, that's
a radio wave?
It sounds a little bit like what Aubrey was talking about, like as a future thing where you could have, you know, things like almost like, well, maybe, I don't know. But the way I took it was Aubrey had talked about, hey, what about this future where you could have like small things that come in the bloodstream that then can change the cells, like operate within the cells and clean them up from the damage that's in the cells. Almost like nano type stuff, but maybe on I mean, I don't know if that's what the guy's talking about, but the idea is that there's something that can enter the body and clean house, like Merry Maids, but for your cells. You know, kind of go around, take the damaged ones and whack them, and then take the good ones and clean them, and then they go out of your body. Like, I think that's nano stuff.
I thought reprogramming is like, and you might know about this, but you have your cells, and certain cell formations make up certain tissues or whatever, or even disease or whatever, right? Do they get radio waves and kind of, you know, move them around a little bit? You know, like, you get over there, and then they position them.
All right.
Why don't we pull it up?
He says that it's about turning a cell back to an embryonic state with the cell retaining its identity.
Is that like iPSC? Induced pluripotent stem cell?
Yeah, that's what they're talking about in this one article. Yeah.
Yeah, that works. No doubt that works. In my opinion.
The idea is that aging is a plastic process, so I assume that's just a metaphor for like the form, and that, you know, you can put it back into, you know. Yeah,
like brain plasticity. They may be likening it to. So Matt, on your thing about talking about repairing damaged cells, that's what we're doing at Actavalon. We're doing a Series B. We'll be opening it up when we have our preclinical data. But we are repairing P53 in the lab and in mice. And what that's going to do is potentially cure or treat more than 50% of all cancer. Now, P53 is the part of the human cell that kills the cell. It causes the cell to kill itself when it detects cancer. So cancer can't take over the cell and then, you know, start to spread. And so this is the body's natural way of doing that. And so we've gone into the lab and we've repaired P53. Huge implications on many things. So we are doing that.
That's awesome, Robin. Wow, what a great thing you're doing.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Because Robin is a CEO. She has been so great with her time with us tonight. I mean, unbelievable.
Do you recommend like 23andMe or alternatives for genotyping?
So I've worked in genetic testing. I have my own 23andMe. Right now it's still, so while we can have some medical insights into it, there's so much we don't know. So it's going to get much better over the next 3 to 7 years when we're able to really aggregate the amount of data behind this and come up with some big insights. So we understand some of it, but there's so much more we don't know yet in the world of genetics, that it's a fun thing to have, and in a couple of cases it is accurate, but otherwise it's fun. It's, you know, I mean, I do it. Like, I love it. I have it, and I actually look at my results sometimes, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you explain for like the lay, like what 23andMe, like what kind of thing? What does that mean?
Sure. So what you do is you do a spit test, and so you just fill up a vial with your spit, and they're able to sequence your genome based on that. Now, this is not a full genome. To get your full genome sequence is going to cost about $1,000, and which is a game changer, by the way. That is a major drop in price if you think about the fact it cost $100 million in 2001 and $2.5 billion to even get to that point. So $1,000 genome, very, very cheap. 23andMe, though, is $99 to $200 or whatever, right around there. So, of course, they are doing a partial genome, which is a certain number of SNPs. With that information, they have been able to take what some of the scientific studies or what they may have aggregated themselves, but there is a bunch of scientific studies on which genes, when they are expressing themselves in a certain way, will lead to something. One that most people have heard of is like APOE. APOE is implicated in things like heart disease, right? And so if you have a double D variation on your APOE gene versus like a double A or an AC or a CD, right? So those are the different combinations. Of course, it's made up of 4 letters. And so they're able to tell what your APOE is and how it's expressed, whether it's the double A or the double D or what have you. And they have implications based on that. And so with, like, say, some people are more prone to a drop-dead heart attack and at the age of 40, even if they're a marathon runner, but those same people are probably also very good at bodybuilding. And the endurance athletes also seem to have the blood the genes that have allowed them to have the vascular system that allows endurance running, but also is much better for your heart overall. Mm. So those are the kinds of things you can find in 23andMe itself. You're gonna mostly find your like heritage. So I found out I'm 99.9% European, even though I'm like super American. My family's been here hundreds of years, but it turns out I'm 99.9% European. I don't know what that other 1% is.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that test.
Yeah. You can do things like find out how much Neanderthal you have in you, right?
He's got a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of you may have a lot on this particular video cast. I won't name names, no, I'm just kidding. They also tell you things like, are you predisposed to curly hair? Or something like that, right? And actually, my hair is very curly. It's 90 degrees here in Palo Alto today, which is really crazy abnormal, but normally my hair is very curly. So it actually came back, though, and said that I'm supposed to have straight hair. So the science is not exact yet. There's so much we don't know.
I'm a little bit worried about big government, right? Like, I mean, you can collect all that data. You've got the genetic fingerprint of people. So, I mean, I worry a little bit about Big Brother because that's a big push to get all that genetic information under one hat.
We can already do. Oh, first of all, there are countries. There's one country, I forget which one it is, where you are required by law now to have your genome on the federal database, essentially. We are also able to now, with your genome sequence, determine exactly what you look like. That is insane. Like, oh my God, you're 20, like the data, I don't know if 23andMe is doing enough snips with that, but essentially like they can construct exactly who you are and what you look like based on a piece of hair that they have, right?
Yeah. Well, that kind of gets into, in my mind, CRISPR. That's one thing that kind of has tremendous promise because it could end like Down syndrome, it could end Parkinson's. It just goes in and snips the genome out that's incorrect. And you think about the millions of people that could affect, sickle cell anemia, all kinds of things that could just be eradicated.
Yeah.
But you get the wrong guy with wants to modify a mosquito with some superbug that is a genetic bug. To me, it's crazy at the same time.
You gotta hope that people are good people. You know, you never give up on that. I mean, there's always going to be bad people, but
I know I got a little shady at the end of the call here, didn't I? I got a little distrusting of everybody, didn't I? Thanks for bringing me back, Pat. You're great, cousin. You know.
Dark there, you don't want to show any light on you.
Yeah, shine a little light on. Yeah.
The one thing that I think that is so right here, right now, is the fact that we can clean our air with purifiers. I just bought this thing from Target. I don't even know what it's called. A buddy of mine was talking about it on set, and it was like, "Oh, you got to get this thing. It takes all the particles out, and it comes with a tester. So what's that? Takes the particles out of water.
Water.
So you'd also get air purifiers. But this particular thing was a water purifier, and it comes with a tester. So he went crazy, and he's like, I tested all these different bottles of water. It was like a scientist, and he's testing and he's checking out for the particles, and he's like, oh well, Dasani has X amount, and this one has this amount, and then my drinking water was this, and then you put it through this filtration system, this purifier, and it comes out with 0 particles. I mean, I think that's great. And now I'm drinking it. I won't even drink the bottle, like I have the big jugs in my office. I won't even touch them. And then, I fill up this thing, and of course Marvin and the other guys are tapping into my resources, and I'm having to fill it up, but we'll outsource that. So Marvin. But anyway, but I feel great for it, and then and for some reason I don't know if it's just in my head, but I feel like, oh wow, I feel better, even though I'm having a coffee now because I'm down in Georgia, but and I'm tired. But health, we can affect our health right now by running, by working out, by eating right, and that to me is so many people are missing that tip. Like, get out there, get on a freaking bicycle, get on a treadmill. do something, you know?
Working out is one of the single biggest things you can do, I think, both to look fantastic, to feel amazing, to be clear-headed, to have extra time in your day. Even you think it's going to take time, but it actually adds time to your day because you are so much more energetic and so much more capable.
Yeah,
that's good.
Right there at the first stage. Get on a treadmill.
I got a treadmill right here. Can you see it?
Nice.
You see that?
Maddie?
I got to bang out 4 miles tonight. You know,
that's awesome.
It's part of the schedule. Yeah.
I'm gonna be hurting on that run, but it doesn't matter. I'll still make it.
Well, you got the IV when we finish.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap this up, what do you think we should be targeting ourselves for in future talks? And just at the moment here, just if anybody's watching, probably should have said it earlier, but hit the subscribe button. Also, if you got extra cash laying around, funnel some of that over to her stuff that she's doing. Robin's got a lot of ventures and stuff. Hit her off with a few, you know.
Yeah, we'll add some links to the description.
Video
afterwards. Thank you.
Future, we are going to really jumpstart this thing in the near future. So we're gonna do some technology. We're gonna get some new people. Where do you think we should go with this?
Oh, so get someone on who's an expert in the tissue engineering of vascular organs that can talk about like Jennifer Lewis's lab at Harvard and lung bone. So get Luis Alvarez on. Like he would be amazing.
Okay, that's great.
And do maybe something on the microbiome, because that's a really hot topic right now, and it plays well into the world of stem cells and in the world of regen med, because we might be able to start treating disease, and we actually, in fact, are already treating disease with things like fecal transplants. So getting a microbiome expert would be super interesting.
Okay. Will you join us for those?
How about a funding one? Where we get it, we go out there, you know, as we start building a little bit more, you know, following or whatever you want to call it, and then we're going to get this out to more people, and I'm going to try to bring my Facebook people over, and you know, LinkedIn people, whatever, because we're just kind of testing the waters. And that's why I'm also so happy that you're like sticking with us as we're building and growing and grow together. It's so cool. So. Yeah, I like a funding one, because right now we'll start doing some you know, what do you call it? You know, crypto stuff. You know, Bitcoin and Ethereum and you know Ripple and all. There's a lot of whales out there, guys, that became like billionaire, you know, millionaires overnight, and they're probably just like, well, easy come. I mean, this was great. You know, wow, I'm so fortunate. Maybe they're inclined to actually converge the two. So you got these Bitcoin people, you know, the crypto people, and then you got these biosciences and stuff, and we can kind of maybe bring them together.
We'll see if any life science tech company is doing an ICO, an initial coin offering, because that's really interesting. It's edgy, it's trendy. And I don't know of any, but I'm not in finance, so I don't follow the ICO stuff. I just know what's going on.
Okay, I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah, and blockchain and biotech, blockchain and HIPAA, blockchain and patient data. So that's an interesting thing, because that's the backbone of the cryptocurrency movement.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, blockchain, keeping information though.
I want to get my sister Eileen on some of this stuff too, because she's going to be a difficult one, because she's like a huge healthcare consultant. She's been in the business, I mean, ever since she was probably 14, 15 years old. And she's a Wharton grad, you know, master's degree. I always have a lot of fights with her because
you could do it on air. It'd be great.
I'm more, you know, like I'm looking into the innovation and whatever, and she's very like, you know, oh, it's this. She's very, oh, you know, go see the doctor. She wanted me to get brain surgery. When the guy, Peter Janetta at the University of Pittsburgh, she's like, yeah, you should definitely get it. You should definitely get brain surgery. I'm like, are you crazy? Brain surgery? I'm not getting brain surgery. You get brain surgery. So, you know, she's all into that whole thing. Like, oh, the doctor says this, great. They're going to do this. Don't question him. So, but it would be interesting because she is a mastermind with with all the data stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to her, see if we can join her in. It's everybody's welcome here, that's for sure. You know, Robin, thank you so much. You're a fantastic guest.
Marvin's being involved. I love Martin down there. Martin, you gotta like amp up a little bit. Come back at me.
You just messed up my name on air.
Yeah, his name's Marvin.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Martin. Yeah. I need to get that brain surgery. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, Robin, seriously, you're great, and we'll try to get Lewis. See if we can get him and you and maybe somebody with the. You said Biosphere, is that right?
So Lung Biotechnologies, or I mean United. So he's working with them.
Microbiome.
Yeah. Not the airline.
The microbiome. Yeah.
I'm sorry, microbiome. Yeah. All right, we'll try to get the whole gang together. Thank you so much.
Sure, thanks, guys.
Marvin, thanks for being on, man.
Bye.
No,
We're hooking it up, dude.
Bye.
All right, we're going off.